Welcome, everybody. My name is Karen Murphy. I'm one of the high school counselors, and we also have Candace Galarno. We have Ryan Nolan. We have Ashley Kaplan back in Command Central. And where's Lynn? Lynn's here. Lynn Baumgartner's here. Okay, yeah. So this evening's program is being recorded, and it can be viewed again if you wish to do so. And this is the How to Choose a College program for junior students, juniors, and their parents. So we're so appreciative that you came out. We have a strong connection with a very particular college professional in our area, Katie Lesko. She's the Vice President of Enrollment Management at Russell Sage College, and she has partnered with Guilderland High School for decades. Over a decade. Yeah, for a long time. So we lean on her professionalism, her information and knowledge and wisdom, and we were just so blessed to have her with us every year. So we're not letting go, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Katie, and then at the end, we can answer a few questions. And then I just want to do what I like to define as a little helicopter ride over the Naviance program. Not going to take very long. Just want to point out some things. This is a program that we use for college career searching that is extremely helpful. Okay, Katie.
Thank you. I think I can take this off. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for all of you being here. My name is Katie Lesko, and I have done this work for about 26 years or so. I was at Siena for about 16 years, and then I went over to St. Rose for about 6 years, and then I moved over to actually Maria College. After COVID, I was like, I don't want to deal with housing anymore. And Maria has a no housing. It's 2-year school for nursing, so I did that for a couple years. And now this September, because honestly, I missed the average high school student going through this process and looking. I know I missed them. Yeah, I'm sure the parents in the room probably would like to also miss them someday, which hopefully this presentation will help you get to that point. So the presentation, if you want to go to the first slide, I like to break it up into the idea of like how to choose a college, right? So most people think I'm gonna get up here and I'm gonna talk about creating your list, which I am, but I like to give a framework a little bit before we even start into the conversation of what goes on the list. So the framework that I like to give is this academic fit, social fit, and financial fit. What happens is everybody says there's a fit, you're gonna find a fit, you'll walk on campus and you'll feel it and it's a fit. But really, how do you define that fit, right? What does that actually mean? And what does it mean for the family? Because a student might really love that campus, but it's 14 hours away. And there are some days that you are like, yes, go 14 hours away. And there are other days, right, that you're thinking that's a plane ride and that's, you can't get home if you need to. There's things that go into that. So the first is the academic fit. The academic fit is what we think it is. It's the students' classes they've taken in high school, their transcript, how they've done in those classes. It's the major that they're thinking they might want to study. I will always tell you a little fact, which is 80% of the students will graduate with a different major than they started with. So just always remember that when we're driving home this major thing. It's a nice way to help define an academic fit. Do they have classes that I like? That's what I kind of like to think of a major right now as, is it classes, are there classes I'd like to take? But that academic fit creates a profile for the student. And that's what we're really talking about, right? The profile for the student. Colleges also have that profile. So how you match up to the academic fit, your profile matches that college's profile in one of 3 ways. So the middle 50% of who get accepted into that college, so if it's like an 88 average or a 90 average, then the middle 50% is called a match. So your academics, classes you've taken, GPA, SATs, maybe, match up to that college in a 50% way, then that is a match. If you're in the bottom 25% of who gets accepted academically, that means that you're applying to a reach college. So students say that a lot. Like you'll hear seniors be like, oh, well, this is my reach school, this is my safety school. There's definitions. Bottom 25% of who get in to an institution, that would be a reach for you, right? If your academics match the bottom 25%. If your academics are in the top 25%, that is like a safety school is what they used to say. Likely school is what we'd like to say, right? Because sometimes there's nuances that go into that. But the idea is you fit one or three ways, really, when you're putting this list together. And if you understand that academic fit, it can help you make a list that doesn't become a surprise when the decisions come out, right? And that's kind of sometimes what you're doing through this process is managing expectations. And so knowing how you fit academically allows you to help manage those expectations. But there's a lot that go into this, right? So this list that they'll put online, do you like the faculty? That could be an academic match. Do you like the facilities? That's an academic match if you're thinking for labs or location to internships. I'm in a college now that has Albany and Troy. And so the internship is not just one city, it's two. That's awesome. Right? If for students that like that kind of experience. Then you go to the social fit, and that's really the fun part of the fit. So that's, you want to go to a really large, football game. We were Syracuse fans all of our life, still are, right? But didn't want to go to college there. I just liked Syracuse, right? So you have to think about that social fit. What kind of experience do you want to have in college, and how does it fit for you? It's also distance from home. That's a social fit. Can I be comfortable where I am? And can I get home if I need to, or am I okay being more independent? Maybe your aunt lives near there or something like that. So that's the social fit. That list, and there's a reason why there's those ellipses at the bottom of each of these, because this list is really yours to make. Academic matches, social fit matches, and then the financial fit. So the financial fit is really a family conversation. What you're thinking about now as a junior is that those prices, those sticker prices that you might see on some private institutions, and even the publics when you're thinking about room and board and all of those types of pricing, that can be a little bit overwhelming at some point. What you want to do at this stage is not necessarily cross things off the list because of price, but you want to recognize your family's circumstances. You want to have a little bit of the conversation about what makes sense for the student, and then what can the family afford? And sometimes part of financial fit is distance from home, right? Can you afford the ticket, the train, plane ticket at the holidays, things like that. So there's other things that go into that financial fit than just academic scholarships. But those academic scholarships and those merit or institutional aid scholarships, a lot of times they can bring the sticker price down for students to be able to, get to a school that maybe they didn't think they could get to. The reason why it's 3, and you can go to the next slide, fits, is because really what you're doing is starting to make a grid. So on the left-hand side is college A, B, and C, and you can have up to Z. I don't recommend, right? I think about 7 is what we're seeing or so. If you have more at the beginning and start to cross them off the list, that's really important, because if you keep your list growing but you don't start to cross them off, it becomes a very expensive list, right? Time consuming. So you have your college name on the left side, and the idea is you'll have a profile, right? I just put business and 90 average on here, but you could be whatever you want. Nursing, it could be athletics, I really want to play a sport, right? So the thing on the top, your fit, is things that are really valuable to you, and your academic profile, because that's part of the whole thing. How do your academics fit? And then essentially you're going to look at your academic profile, and this top green bar are characteristics that should be important to you in some level, and then you're going to keep on filling it out. So you can be as long or as short as you'd want. But it's some of these things that make sense. And that whole reach match likely works not just for academics. So distance from home, if it's too close, could be a reach in your mind. Am I going to be comfortable there? Maybe it's too close. But internships could make it a match. So when you look at this grid, maybe college A was the aspirational one. It was a reach because it was really academically prestigious and you wanted to be there. It was a reach because maybe they had a coach that you could, you really wanted to play a sport or be first chair in the marching band or something. I don't know if it's first chair in the marching band. You can tell I'm not a music person. First chair in the orchestra. I know they have that. And it was a reach financial cost because a lot of times if you're a reach academically and they're taking a bottom 25% of who gets in, sometimes that makes the financial scholarship less desirable. So you don't get as much money academically if you're in the bottom 25%, and that changes a financial fit for a family. But you really, there's other things that made sense to you. The location, the study abroad made sense. I like that college reasons to impress, because the idea behind that is, what does the college tell you that you really hold on to, right? Everybody will research a college and they'll be like, well, this college is #1 in study abroad. And there's many other colleges that have study abroad, but that college figured out how to tell you that they were #1, right? Why that's important is because most likely if the college is telling you that they're #1 in study abroad, it's actually that it's important to the college. So when you like those little impressive things, what you're doing is connecting to that value at the college. That means that they probably have a flexible curriculum. They probably have some, J terms, like small semester classes that you could take a class and go abroad, not for a full semester. That's why that column actually matters, is because what you connect to with what they say is it's going to be a match for you. You're going to like what they're telling you, or maybe not, right? You're like, I really don't care that, I don't even know that they won 4 state championships in, lacrosse or something like that. That's not important to me. And so if that's all over everywhere, then you say to yourself, I wonder if that's something that if I'm the right social fit for that place. Right? Now, you have to be careful, because maybe it was just because it happened yesterday and all students deserve to have a celebration. But what you really want to think about is that's why the visit matters, because then you can kind of see, do what they're telling me that impresses me show up when I arrive on campus, right? I'm testing their theory. So that's how this reach, match, and likely works. Anybody have an idea where the business student should maybe go when you're looking at this grid? Anybody? B. B. Right? I think B. Now, I haven't met the student. That does matter too, right? But thinking it through this way, and it's not that college C is not a bad option, because there's a lot of likelies, right? So college C might fit really well for that student. And the reason why I threw that little honors thing in there is because sometimes there's certain programs in colleges that can make it more of a match. You're really academically talented for a school, you get into their honors program, all of a sudden your classroom looks a little bit different than most of the other classrooms that you'd be in, right? And so there are certain ways to make a likely turn into a match. And they had some first-year programs that were cool. But College B, when you start to see these matches, then you go visit and you start to test out that theory, right? Because on paper it might look one way, but in person it might look another way. The framework, though, should give you the idea that what you're thinking about and all that information that's coming to you has to kind of get organized some way. And so thinking it through those 3 guideposts sometimes makes creating your list a little bit easier. We'll go to the next slide. So really, where do you get started? And this is probably the most overwhelming part. If any of you bought a house, sometimes this is like buying a house, right? You're on those websites all the time. But college websites are great tools. Naviance that they're going to teach, or like a little bit, you'll start to get into that. That allows for some comparisons. It allows for some context about the college information. you want to use these sort of low-cost resources first, because this will cost you money to go travel, right? So if you're using that sort of research piece to it first, you can start to build a list. My note on the bottom will forever be my note on the bottom, which is use family and friends. There's a cautionary tale to that. So anybody that's like, oh, you have to go to this place, it's the best. Well, it could be the best for them, it could be the best for their child, and you'd be happily able to go research it and see if it would fit, right? Because that sort of passion, right, you've got to love a good alum, but might not be exactly the fit for your student. So kind of be careful, navigate those family conversations a little bit, and it will help you. But there's also colleges out there that people are connected to, and when you have someone who also has gone to that place, sometimes that's a nice extra resource. Now you're an alum, maybe there's an internship, things along those lines. So if they're as passionate about their institution as, then maybe there is more connections to that. So don't disregard people who have a passion for their place, but also understand that it's your own search for the students and the families in the room. So I will always have that cautionary tale. What I love is the unofficial way to also look at schools. So for the students in the room, right, Snapchat, TikTok, watching Instagram stories and feeds. All clubs, typically like colleges that you're interested in, their clubs will have TikTok feeds. So if you have a club that you really want to be a part of, mock trial, cheer team, actually follow that social media piece, and if you enjoy that, what they're saying, right, that's an unofficial way to visit. So there's ways to get that information. I will do a call out to the college essay guy. Has anybody heard of the college essay guy? College Essay Guy's on Instagram. He does podcasts. He's actually a great resource, and he does a lot of work on. It's free too. I think you can pay for like a boot camp kind of thing. You have to figure out if you really need that or not. But a lot of the resources are free, and what it does is it gives the student prompts, right? So how to get your essay started. So there's an essay component to it, but also there's a lot of specific information about applying to the University of California system, maybe. So if you're thinking about applying to systems, to schools that are more competitive or have a state kind of nuance to them that we're not as familiar with, your school counselors are excellent, by the way. I wouldn't be here for all the many years as I have if they weren't. But there's this extra resource that you're starting to kind of get research done and start thinking it. I really liked how he presents information because it has an authenticity to it, which is the goal of this too. So this is how you get started. You'll start to put your college list together. It might be because of that alumni cousin that was like, woohoo, and you might leave that college on the list after you go through this research process, and you might take that college off. But the key to this is starting to put your list together now. And then, next slide. So really what you're doing in this junior year, and we talked about the fit and the academics, and you talked about the list, and you're putting things together, you're gonna start to go on those college websites and research the application requirements. Because if you start to do that now in your junior year, as you start to put your application, the idea of just understanding some terminology, understanding if the school is test optional or not. It'll help you prepare for your junior year, the spring semester your junior year, but it'll help prepare for your fall of your senior year better if you start to look at this stuff, understanding kind of what goes into the applications. So the application itself is the demographic information about a student. The transcript, and I always like to remind students of this, is the classes that you've taken. Freshman, it's your classes and the end of year grades. Sophomore year classes, end of year grades. Junior year classes, end of year grades. So right now you're not at the end of the year yet. There's a point to this. And then senior year, just your classes. Most of the time when you're applying to college, you're applying in the fall of your senior year. And I say this because there's time. So when you look at your transcript in your classes, you're going to see that freshman year in those classes and how you finished, and sophomore year in those classes and how you finished. And right now you have an opportunity to head into midterms in January, and if your grades are not as strong as you would like them, you have time. Because we don't see a bad second quarter. We just see the end of the year grades. I always tell people, if you ever had to judge me off of my third quarter in high school, I might have not survived some things, right? I lived in Western New York. It was dark, it was gloomy, there was no sports to play. So, it just is different for all students. That end of year is really what's most important, right? Those grades. It also says this: you might not do well on a paper, and I think we've created a place where there's like anxiety happens, anxiousness happens, and it's that one paper, and it's okay if it's part of many other things that you've done well. Now, doesn't mean try to do well on that paper, but it means, think through, are you setting time aside to study? Are you writing a draft? Are you researching with enough time to get things done? The other thing that you also have time to do is make better habits in this next semester to bring those grades up. We have I forgot the transcript. That's funny. You guys should have said, okay, we talked all about the transcript and it's not even on the bubble. So the transcript should be on the bubble as well. We'll include that as part of the application. The SAT or test optional, my one rule advice is just know if they take them or not, know if they're a part of the program or not. If they're test optional, what we've seen is students, I'll go back to that match, that fit, right? Students who have a score, an SAT or an ACT, in that mid 50% range, like above the average, we've seen students submit those scores. And if you're below the average, now that kind of makes the average go up, but hey. So we've seen students submit those scores. And if you're below the average, then we've seen students not submit those scores. Sometimes you have to look at it for which programs, things along those lines. There's not a lot of things we can thank COVID for that we can thank COVID for. It forced colleges to be able to say, are there other indicators that are better for a student to be evaluated on? And that really, it had to be the catalyst because they weren't necessarily going to get to it on their own. So it was really, we'd been going in that direction. People had started to become test optional since 2002 or so. We saw a really big push in 08, we saw a really big push in 16, but that was finally the part that did it. But some people still require it, some people require it for scholarships, so there's definitely little fine points that you want to understand. The essay, the recommendation, the talents, right, that's all about you. And the reason why I put that slide together is because as you think about what's in it for me on that social fit, you're going to present to colleges what you've also done, how have you contributed. Colleges are looking to accept students, they're looking to accept students into their community. So you don't have to be a leader in everything. You don't have to be an elected person in anything. What you want to be is a contributor. And contributions look very different. It can be that you go to every basketball game, because we need people to go to every basketball game or every show. I just saw that they did The Play That Goes Wrong. That was cool. That's a good play. And so, right, maybe you're not on stage and maybe you're not even behind the stage, but maybe you haven't missed a production. That's still somebody that's gonna go do something in college. And it's really good to kind of reframe some of that, because I think we always say, well, run for office, right? Right now, we'd probably all elect you. But that is not the only way to contribute. Now, there's other ways that you can contribute is maybe you play a sport and the rec league in town needs some referees, right? Umps, something like that. That's a different way to do what you like and then give it to somebody else as well. So there's ways to be able to find some volunteer experiences or things like that matter. The other thing that COVID really did, I think, was highlight family responsibilities. Some students take care their siblings. We especially saw that during the COVID experience. That is contributing to your community. You can't go do a lot of things after school because you're coming home and taking care of your siblings, right? We can't forget that the everyday life part of what we do is part of what colleges are looking forward to. Work is another thing. Some of us really just aren't into the school thing. And, or being a part of it, but they do horseback riding lessons, or they play on a travel team, or they work. All of that is part of the college application that you're going to put together. And as you think about these things that you're putting together, you're going to find colleges that also highlight some of those things that you're involved with. So it's why it matters to the college fit kind of conversation, because there is a social connection to that. We'll go to the next one. So getting through, and I promise you there's another slide. Or there's not another slide. I promise you that there's a getting through part to this. So really, spring year, junior year, you're going to want to visit places and research, create the college list. We talked a lot about that. Meet your school counselors if you don't know them. Amazing resources, and they have many school colleges will come to the high school. And so they will know if the colleges that you're interested in are coming to the school, so the student can meet them. There's always a college fair in the spring and fall at Hudson Valley. Typically it's March, so there's a way to meet a lot of different college people. It's admissions counselors that are going on the road, and they will typically read your applications. You can see the stuff above the dotted line, little asterisks, are all about kind of the college stuff. The stuff below the college line are things that I think I've seen, so that's why I'm sharing my knowledge with all of you. Is the junior year spring, if you set up a time to talk about college, it will make this process a little bit easier. We are busy, people are busy. Students have a lot going on. Parents have a lot going on. So if you say, you know what, Sunday at 2, or Wednesday at 7, or Saturday at 6, and you're gonna go for coffee, something like that. Try to get out of the house if there's other people around, go do something. But set that time for college and asking those questions, researching together, because you don't know answers either. Things have changed maybe since the last time that you've done this. And so making sure that you're engaging in the college talk. Sometimes there's nothing to talk about, but if you keep that time kind of sacred, I promise you it will start to come, it'll start to happen, right? Keeping that time allows you, when the senior year hits, it's so much fun, because the difference between a junior spring and a senior fall is now I am a senior. And there's a whole social calendar, and there's a lot of fun things to do that happen in the fall of the senior year. So making sure you have that college time is important, because there's two things. One, when the student's running out the door and you're like, have you done the essay yet? And they say, I just want to go to the homecoming game, right? And you're like, but no. That college time allows you to answer it where it's actually productive and it doesn't become an issue, right? That we've all know that sometimes happens when you're trying to say things in passing. So making sure that you kind of keep that time a little sacred and work through some of that stuff is really good. I would also add responsibility into the student's life at some point in time, the student taking ownership over making a hair appointment, making a doctor's appointment. It sounds silly. I promise you, going away to school, they have to make an appointment with their advisor, or they have to make an appointment with the health center. They have to make an appointment with the counseling center. And that's a habit that doesn't necessarily come natural to people who are busy, because we just do it for people sometimes. And those types of habits will take you farther, right? Because then the students knows how to call someone. You don't really have to call anymore. You just have to go online and pick a date and time. But isn't necessarily not ready to do that. And so those are some of the things that we've learned through the years of how to make this process better, even if you only give them, maybe it's not the doctors because you've got a lot of things going on, but maybe it's that they're the person that schedules the visit for the college, right? They're the person that calls and confirms it. So putting some ownership in the student's lap is actually a great way to be able to move this process forward. And then spring of your senior year, you'll visit again and you'll revisit. I can't stress the visit enough, even though I haven't talked about it a lot, but I can't stress it enough because it's the only way to really understand if people are telling you the truth. And if you can see the brochures match like where you're walking. But you'll want to make sure that in some level, the students are pressurized. Like the students are stressed out and the holidays come around and all of the senior friends right now, if anybody have a senior and a junior at the same time, because God bless you. But the seniors will go to the Thanksgiving break and Uncle Bobby is like, hey, where are you going, right? And they don't even know where they've gotten accepted yet sometimes. And that holiday conversation with the relatives can be really stressful for students because they want to have an answer. They've always felt comfortable having answers. And so having some of those ceasing conversations, like nobody asked, let's not talk about that, or, oh, we're still looking. Those are some of the things that will help the holiday season be much brighter, I promise. And that's it, I think. So you'll get through it, I promise. It's a lot of fun along the way. There's an adult that emerges out of this. And I think we're done. That's it. You want to go to the next slide? Thank you, Ashley. Sorry about that. There is my contact. For those that can't see it, it's Lesko K. So Lesko K, Lesko K. You'll never forget it now. I tried to convince my husband to switch with us, switch. My maiden name was Cooney, so I wanted it to be Lesko Cooney because that was fun. He did not think that was as fun. So Lesko K at sage.edu. I'm happy to answer any questions or do any things, but I'm also happy to hang out for a little bit in case you have any questions. Yes, we got a question.
What sort of reputable sources you want to look up, where colleges rank with their academic programs?
Excellent. The question is about reputable sources. So the question was, what are the reputable sources if you wanted to look up where colleges were ranked for their programs and such? So I love rankings, and I hate them all in one. And I can say that. US is always going to provide a good list, right? Peterson's has a good list. Niche actually has a good list. So those are some of the places that you'll find things ranked. I would be careful because is the ranking for your child the best as the ranking for everyone else's child? So if you're motivated by that's a really strong program, right, and a ranking makes sense to you because somebody else has given you the validity to that, then absolutely. What I would say to you is know what goes into the rankings, know what they're measuring in order to understand why. There's some of these out there that just, might put a list of 5 colleges together and alphabetize them, and that's the ranking or something. So you just want to be careful. You want to know the methodology behind it. The other thing is you want to maybe research backwards. So if you have a career path in mind, you could talk to the people in the career path to say, if you were looking at a program right now, what do you think would be items that a college program would need to be successful in the field right now? And maybe for computer science, it's facilities. Maybe for a cybersecurity program, you want a center, right? There's just lots of things that can go into that. So you could go that way and just talk to people in the field and see what they think. I will say at the end of the day, it's about the social fit too. So if a student's not comfortable, but they're in a strongly ranked institution, sometimes they're not going to get everything out of that ranking because they're just not comfortable. So it's a balance. But the counseling office probably has other things to say on that, or no? I did? I'm good?
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions, Katie? Oh, yep.
Great question. So when you go to the counseling office and you talk about college, what kind of questions should you ask? So I've never been asked that question, and I think that's an awesome question. And now I'm thinking to myself, like, what are some college questions is? So I think what you can ask is, you know me really well, right? Like, so if it's a counselor that you know really well, you could say, so I know you've done this for a while. We won't count how many years. But what are some of the things that you see that I should be looking for, right? Like, because they know you, and then they can help you kind of say, like, actually, if you can look here or look here or look here. Or have you thought about these types of schools? Because counselors there's one of you, but they've already put a lot of students through college. So they see it from a very great kind of bird's eye perspective, and then they can help you kind of identify some of the things that you should look at. So maybe you're thinking, I'm gonna go away from home, but they know that you have a horse that you take care of every weekend and a job that you love, and why would you go away? So they're gonna they're gonna start to ask those questions around what you're thinking. What are some questions that, I can keep going, but what are some questions you like to hear, Mrs. Murphy?
So actually, when you were talking about your time, you're recommending coffee talk or a time when parents and their child get together, that's actually, you're gonna come up with questions, because you're going to be with your parents and you're going to be talking about things, and you're like, well, what about this and what about that? So that's a time when you actually can create an email to your counselor and say, when we meet again, I want to ask you these questions, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And that's fair. And we rely a lot in our office on the Naviance program, because it's a great resource. It's not the end-all, be-all, the Naviance program. It's a great resource. We've been using it for many, many years. But it can get us started with talking about that fit, academic, social, financial, and we can generate a list. And, we teach students and families how to do that, which is a little bit of what we were going to share tonight.
I would say I can think of a lot of questions I want you to think about to bring to the table when you talk to your counselor. So what are your interests? What class makes you happy? What kind of book do you like to read? Because some of those little nuances can actually help you kind of help them, right, formulate the conversation a little bit better. So that's what I would say, is look up some good questions to reflect on. That's why I like the college essay guy, because he's got those types of questions that you can reflect on. He might even have a blog about questions to ask your counselor. You never know.
Anybody else? If anybody else has a question, please raise your hand. You can certainly ask me or any of the counselors. Katie, if you're still here, certainly. But we're going to switch gears. And it's a real great thing that Ashley's there operating the laptop, and I'm not. So, all right. So students have what's called access to our Naviance program. And hopefully that doesn't sound like a new term for them. Sometimes we introduce this in 9th grade, we review it again in 10th grade, but it's kind of like one of those things that initially in high school, they kind of only use it once or twice and then they kind of forget about it. But as students move through high school, junior and senior year, it's far more, it's a resource that we lean on quite a bit. So as we're navigating the tech issues, I'll just start with, it's under the bookmarks on the student in their Chromebooks. So up in the left-hand corner on the Chromebook, it says bookmarks. You click on it, and there's a drop-down list of many things, actually, a lot of great resources. And it will say Naviance, and the student clicks on Naviance. There we go. So there's the bookmarks. And there's Naviance. So students have, they click on that, and it leads them to this screen. They click on Student. And we have a pretend student logged in. So one of the things that the district changed the passwords, and it did affect the passwords in Naviance. So if the student clicks on there and it's not connecting, usually what has to happen is the student will click on forgot password, and then it will prompt them to get a new password. So let's see if this works. Okay, there you go. The password and the username worked. So the username is the school email, and then the password, the student creates the new password if they have to have it reset. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at the student's Naviance account, and so let's start with up in the right-hand corner, Ashley, where it says AK. So that's the student's initials. So if you click on that, this is, these are things particular to the student. So let's just, let's quickly go to where it says test scores. So if a student takes the PSAT, which some of our juniors have, it'll eventually get logged in there. If they take the SAT or the ACT, it gets logged onto Naviance. Now keep in mind, I like to call Naviance our digital filing cabinet. So we're loading information here. We're not necessarily sending it anywhere. We're just kind of storing it here. It's for the students' use, it's for the parents' use, so they can have easy access to it. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's not always something that we send out. All right, so let's go back to that drop-down menu. Let's go to resume. So we introduced the resume in 9th grade to students in English classes, and again in 10th grade when we did another activity in English classes. And so that red plus, or that white plus and the red circle up there on the right-hand side, that is where, if you click on that, there's a whole list of ways of categorizing what students have done in school, outside of school. Volunteer jobs. Like Katie was saying, not everybody plays a school sport, plays an instrument in our music programs, is in, theater, but sometimes they are, and then sometimes they do things outside of school. So that's an example, and we ask students to add that information into Naviance because all of this valuable information is going to be used if the student applies for a job, when they're applying for, with college, filling out college applications, they're going to use all this information again. So it's good just to have it updated. And you can do that a couple times a year. It's very simple. Okay, let's go up to where it says colleges. And then to the left, it says advanced college search. So this is kind of matching with what Katie's presentation was about. So not exactly everything that we're going to go through completely connects, but it's going to give you a quick way of kind of creating that list. So when the student over here said, well, what questions should I ask? So these are some questions that you might ask. So what am I thinking about in terms of a school type? So some students want to start out at a 2-year school, some want to start out at a 4-year school. So you would just pick the one that is the preference to you initially. So let's select the 4-year college. I usually say no preference for public and private. So a public school is in New York State is a SUNY school. A private college or university locally is Russell Sage. That's a private, and the difference is the tuition, because New York State taxpayers help fund the tuition on public colleges and institutions, and therefore the tuition is lower. So we'll click off on co-ed. So there might be some parents that want all female, and I totally understand, but we'll say co-ed for now. And I usually don't check anything else, and this is just the way I do it. It might be important for the student to be in a large city. We can always come back to that. So let's jump over to where it says location. And then scroll down, please. And we're just going to pick on New York because we live in New York. We can get crazy and pick a lot of states, but let's just keep it simple tonight. And then let's jump over to where it says majors. Okay, so here, if you scroll down, you can type in a search for a major by name. So here we can type in anything. What's a good one? What does Russell Sage have? Education. Okay. and then go, and then when we see education, lots of stuff comes up. Because education is, it could be early childhood education, it could be adolescent education or secondary education. So lots of things come up. All right, which one do we want to pick? Let's go to early childhood. I think it's in there because I just did this today with somebody. There we go. All right, add selected. Okay. And then we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom and click on view matches. So we have 31 colleges in New York State that are 4 years that have early education as a major, okay? And so here's our list, and those little boxes on the side, students can click off a box. They say, oh, Adelphi University, I've heard of that. I think I know somebody who goes there. You can just check the box. You can check as many of those on the side as you wish. Local school, there's the College of St. Rose. Did Russell Sage come up? Oh, there it is. There we go. Good. Good call, Candace. So by checking off on the side, students can actually save those to colleges I'm thinking about list. So we're not married to this list. We're just thinking about things. We want to put them on the side, and it goes there. Now, we do see that some of the colleges have like a little extra asterisk or stars next to it, and what that simply means is that those colleges sent additional information to Naviance. It's an expanded profile with more beautiful pictures than the other ones. So it doesn't mean it's a better college. It just means it has more information loaded into Naviance. But sometimes your eye does attract to those colleges, like. So anyway, so those are ways of kind of creating that quick list. It doesn't answer all of the questions, but it starts to generate a list of colleges that the student and family might have a real interest in. Does that make sense? Okay. There's a question.
So if a list like that comes out and there's 30 colleges out there, how would you recommend to students to then start to check the box? Because most juniors probably really don't know a lot. If they don't have older siblings, they probably don't know any of the colleges. So
Yeah.
how would you tell students to narrow that list down?
Okay, so how do we narrow a list down? It could be 50 colleges, it could be 30, this one's 30. So Ashley, if you can scroll up a little bit. And if we go to, so in order to, we can narrow this list down by adding more qualifiers in, and that will pull the list down. So if we go to the button where it says admission up top, and if you scroll down, so the way they have categorized this, so the colleges that accept less than 25% of students, those would be considered the more selective of that group. So like if students think, okay, I want to go to the most selective college I can get into, I want to know which ones have, are the hardest ones to get into, for example. You could click on less than 25%. And then view matches, and that brings us, that makes it easy. That brings it down to 1. Now this is, keep in mind, that's early childhood education. So not all colleges have every major that, if we're just looking at this one particular one. If we go back to less than 25% admission, and we go to the next button, so that's a way of also kind of, categorizing. So here we have some schools there. So we have some CUNY schools, and we have some SUNY schools. So CUNYs are City University of New York, and then SUNY is obviously State University of New York. So those are all public colleges and institutions there. So that's a way of narrowing it down. Now to drill down even more, so hey, Ashley, can you scroll down, please? And if you can click on SUNY Cortland, actually I had that one in my mind. I was thinking about it. Okay, so this is the expanded view on Naviance. This is just what Cortland has shared with Naviance, so we can see, some pictures. There's the overview, study, student life admissions and costs. The other thing that you can see, if you can just point to it, Ashley, where it's got the website for the school. So I always direct students to go to the website. is the best resource for any particular college. It can be a little tedious, but if you have a list, say, of 10 or 15 or 20 schools, you're looking at 10, 15, 20 colleges, and you can go through those websites. You don't have to do it all in one evening. But if you're doing this over a course of, of time, then you really get a lot of information about a particular school. So that I can guarantee you the pictures are always going to look great. They look fantastic. I want to go. I want to live there. I want to go to the sporting events. It looks great. Let's hop over to where it says admissions. And if you can scroll down. So we've been collecting data for a long time, since 2009, since we've had Naviance. And so these are students each year. Well, we don't know their names, but we just know the numbers. So we have how many people have applied, how many got accepted, and then how many actually enrolled. So that kind of gives us a little bit of, that gives us some information. And this is just Guilderland kids, it's nobody else. And if you scroll down a little bit more, it shows us a scattergram. And when you hover over any one of those points, it'll tell us the grade point average, and it will tell the SAT score. And we can see that there is a little bit of overlap with the green and the red. Green are kids who got accepted. Red, unfortunately, are students who did not. They were denied. And blue are students who were waitlisted. And you can kind of see there's a line there. There's kind of like a line. And if we went to another college, like Binghamton University, for example, there is a line. These are the kids who are accepted, and these are kids who are not. There's a little bit of an overlap here of acceptances. Students who take the ACT, they can see that because there is a difference in how the SAT and the ACT are scored, so that kind of gives you an idea. So this is a way where you can determine, okay, my grade point average, I have an 87 as a junior right now. And I know that I have an 87 as a junior right now because last year on my final report card was the average that I had through my 10th grade year, counting my 8th grade high school credits, all my 9th grade, and then all my 10th grade. And so that gave me a cumulative grade point average. So it's not the grade point average that you're going to have when you apply to college, because like we heard from Katie, that's going to change this year. So, so that's another piece of information that students and parents can have when they're comparing what they have versus what's the typical student that's getting accepted, at some typical Guilderland student who has a 95, who has a 90, who has an 85, who has an, and so on and so forth. So you start to see a picture of where you will fit in to certain schools. Okay, let's go scroll back up. So when students are sitting down with their parents and they're doing that advanced college search, you can save a search. Say it's my early childhood education search for New York State, but then I want to do one for Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Vermont. You can save certain things under certain categories and then check those boxes on the side and save them into the list that you're thinking about. You can have a lot of colleges in your thinking about list. That's fine, because you're not going to likely apply to all of those colleges. Kind of like Katie was saying, it's kind of like between 7 and 10 is the average, but some students apply to more, some apply less. Let's just do a quick click on the, if you can please, the website for SUNY Cortland. Because here's the appointment that our juniors can make. They can not, it doesn't have to be now or tonight or this weekend, but this is where we can find out how do you schedule a visit, and I'll show you. So let's see. Not all, oh, what does it say right there? I don't have the right glasses on. These are my close glasses, and then my far away glasses are in the car. Okay, so there it says visitor's guide. Okay, so you click on there. On the right, it says campus tours. A lot of these colleges have virtual events, which is nice to do before you drive 4 hours to go check someplace out. You could do a virtual tour, and then they would schedule that with you. If you want to do a campus tour, they have, where do they go here? Let's go back. There we go. Admissions visits. Where we have, so usually what happens, so always undergraduate admissions, and then you find, it's usually a calendar right there, and it will tell you what the dates and the times are that they have available for visits. And so anything in green is available, and you would click on that, and then enter your information, and they would send you a confirmation email for that date and time. So that's how easy it is. It's very simple. And so this is how we recommend students to go visit. You don't want to just go drive and show up because you want admissions to know that you're there, because that means something in the application process, that you made the effort to go and do a campus tour, and that they're going to use that potentially when they review your application. So that's a quick review of Naviance. So just quickly kind of moving forward a little bit, teachers are going to be meeting, talking to students in classes about recommendations for next year for college or for classes. So that's happening in December. In January, the counselors meet with all of their students individually, and we pick classes for next year. We go over those recommendations and review that. For juniors, we invite parents in with their child, with the counselor, and we sit down and have what's called the junior conference, and we go over kind of like what we talked about tonight, but in a more individual way. This is kind of general, but we go into an individual conference where we go over all of that information, okay? And then in the meantime, if actually just met with a junior today, and we did the same process, and she kind of had questions, and she says, I don't even know where to start. And I said, okay, let's get your Chromebook out, and this is what we did. And we kind of got started on creating a list or a direction to point to, so that way you can continue on. Question?
So one, is the student transcript, I know the original you have to write a check for, but is there some kind of a transcript available through Naviance as well? And also, I've heard that the website Niche has colleges reach out to students. I don't know if that's true, and is the same true for Naviance?
So students have a Naviance account, so I don't know that Naviance reaches out.
They can tell you when a school is interested in you.
Oh, okay. So
It'll pop up.
So if a student has information saved about a particular college, it'll pop up and say, do you want to connect with SUNY Cortland or Russell Sage or something like that. So most of these other websites you register for, you put your information, your email in, and then they will send you information. And it can be a lot, but it's sometimes, it's a lot of, I don't know if they connect with students through individually. I know, having a senior, that they're sending email, the colleges themselves are sending emails directly to the student and the parents, unsolicited. So we're going through, we have lots of, communications constantly. So it's not always through a third party. But with regard to the transcript, so we were going to load into onto Naviance under documents shared with me, up under the student's initials. So it's going to have, later in the school year, it's going to have the junior transcript. And this is unofficial. It's just kind of like, hey, this is what your transcript looks like. Please review it, make sure it looks correct. We always review it as well. We're looking for anything that doesn't look right. Eventually, the senior transcript is uploaded. It's just more for your review. We send the transcript automatically when the student applies, and it's an electronic submission to colleges. And there is no payment. The only time a student is paying for a transcript is if they've left school, they've graduated, and they need the transcript sent to an employer or another college. So that would be farther down the road. Yep. Yes?
I know you briefly went over this, that they had the PCT scores and the SAT scores, and
So our office recommends students, when they take any kind of, that's called standardized testing, SATs, ACTs, or standardized testing, we always recommend students to take both. And in this area, people think it's all about the SAT. It's not. It can be about both. So the reason why we recommend students to take both is you don't know how you're going to do on one versus the other. If you only have experience with the one test, you don't know your performance on the ACT or vice versa, the SAT. So some students just do better on one than the other, and we only will know when they take it. We still recommend that students take testing seriously because it might be used in the college admissions process. Many colleges are test optional, which is nice because, you know, these are tough tests and not everybody performs well. You can prepare for them, you can study and improve your score. Not based on my own personal experience, but some other people's experiences. So you can do what, you know, you can improve. And like Katie was saying, those tests, even if they're not used in the admissions process, they could be used perhaps with awarding scholarship or merit-based money, which is kind of nice too. But there's two different scoring systems. There is a way of comparing the scores. And sometimes if a student does better on one versus the other, we'll say, just send that score, don't send that score. You know, don't send the SAT, just send the ACT, or vice versa, send the SAT and not the ACT. We can determine which one's a better score. Actually, if you Google it, you can find it. Like you can, like SAT versus ACT scores, and you can see what the comparisons are. So the PSAT was just done in October, and then students will take the SAT and the ACT for real this spring coming up. So April, May, June timeframe, students are invited to take that. So, and we will be talking about that in our junior conference, which we do in January, February timeframe. So plenty of time before students have to register for a test. Yes?
I know I'm getting probably a little ahead of myself, but like with visits,
Yep.
college visits, I noticed like a lot of them are during the week. How does that work with the school? Like, are they excused absences?
Yeah. So and timing is everything because one of the things that, yes, so the simple answer is yes, a college visit absence from high school does count as a legal absence. You're still responsible, you know, blah, 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 blah. Just like when you're absent at a time, you're still responsible for making up the work with your teacher. But yes, it does count. Sometimes the open houses are really great events to go to, and they're typically held on Saturdays and Sundays for the college, and they have, you know, a bunch of people out and really nice way to explore and check out the school. But yes, that's an easy answer. Sometimes I always kind of recommend start with local colleges. It's really easy to go visit the College of St. Rose, to visit Russell Sage, SUNY Albany, Hudson Valley Community College. Even if there's no intention of applying or actually going, sometimes it's just nice to walk around. What does a dorm room look like? What do dining facilities look like? What does the campus look like? Oh, I like this gym that they have, recreational facility that they have. That's important to me. So these are the things, when Katie was talking about fit, you're kind of exploring those things. And you might like something in a local college, and you might, when you go to some other colleges, you might use that information into determining, you know, if that other school is something that meets your needs. Any other questions? I know I talked a lot, sorry. Give me a microphone and I'll just keep talking. So thank you very much for coming out. It's a lot of information. What I advise is if you think of a question later tonight, any other time, you can email or call your school counselor, and that's for students and parents. you know, sometimes you think of something, it's late at night, I'm not going to answer it at 11 p.m., trust me, but you can send me the email, and I will get back to you, I promise. And then we encourage students to come in and see us, certainly as they have questions, but we will be seeing them, like we'll be reaching out specifically to them. So thanks again for coming out.